Welcome to the Global Investor Podcast. The goal of this podcast is to offer investors and entrepreneurs insights and practical advice to dramatically improve the kinds of deals that you invest in and the returns that you get. My name is James Evenson. I am one of the partners at Crown Private. If you're unfamiliar with Obris, we are a membership syndicate of investors. Our membership and our community are built up of like-minded yet unique and often adventurous individuals and family offices. Today, I will be interviewing Greg Adams, who is one of the co-founders and the CEO of Stabilitas. This is a company that we as Obris invested in back when they first started. Greg was a special forces team leader in Western Afghanistan for the U.S. military. He was responsible for coordinating multiple types of organizations from government to NGO to business, from the US to Afghanistan and to NATO partners. He needed a common operating picture to support a common operating environment, particularly for keeping people safe. And so Greg decided to build it. In 2015, Greg, along with his classmate, Chris Hurst, they were classmates at West Point Military Academy as well as Harvard for graduate school. They created Stabilitas. We invested in their seed round of funding, and we've been pleased with the development of Stabilitas ever since. So I'm very pleased to introduce Greg to you folks today and enjoy the podcast. Welcome, Greg.
Hey, James, thanks for having me on. It's good to talk to you again, now remotely versus in person in Portland.
Absolutely. That was a little over a year ago, another rainy day when we met up. So where do we find you today?
I'm in Seattle. So okay. I have found a little spot that I could chat with you and try to stay out of the hustle and flow of the office right now. So hopefully there isn't any chaos going on in the background.
Well, let's just dive right in. I gave everybody a brief introduction on you. We're going to dig into Stabilitas and Greg, as well as kind of where you've been and where you're going. So let's start off with, in general terms, Stabilitas is about security. So what problem or problems are you solving in the world?
Well, so fundamentally, like what is security about? To me, security is about understanding what's happening in the world so you can take action. We look at that in terms of being able to take action to protect assets or operations, but really getting to that understanding of the world is what Stabilitas is about, and building a platform for that others can build on. Big picture, that's getting after like our real ambition as a company. Mm-hmm. I can dive into a little bit more of the details, but our beachhead product is definitely serving the security space, where we think we've been smart as far as our go to market. We know many of the problems that security managers face as far as understanding the massive amounts of information that are out there that could relate to assets that are moving around the world, physical assets like people, vehicles. It could be parts of companies' supply chain. So we generally deal with global companies that have a lot of stuff, and the bottom line is things happen, events mm-hmm. happen every day, and they impact the operations for companies. They make people late. They could damage or cause other kind of harm to corporate assets that are really important for delivering to the bottom line. And so we try to help companies find anything that's going to impact their company and their corporate assets as fast as possible, understand whether and how that information is relevant to them, and then give them an ability to take action.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You mentioned global companies. Can you be more specific in terms of who you're solving the problem for?
I don't want to dive into the exact customers, but I would say
I don't think we don't have to do that. I think that I know you have quite a number of contracts, but just kind of a little more specifically.
So our customers fall into four segments for us right now. The first customers we started working with are really manufacturing and pharma companies that had really global supply chains. Another segment is media, sports, and entertainment. So think super high value assets like, basketball players, things like that, that are playing in a different city, and the security team needs to know, hey, what are the risks that we might be facing there? Obviously relates directly to the bottom line of, say, a professional basketball team. And then we serve security companies directly, because many of them can't develop their own software. And finally, we have really started to expand in the travel space, delivering pre-travel advice and really breaking news information for people that might be traveling. So that's, has really a wide-ranging kind of market impact as far as the number of companies that we can get to there, working with travel management companies as a channel.
Are you actually serving that group already?
Yes. We have, more than 1,700 companies' data moving through our platform and being analyzed to understand if there are any risks on en route.
Oh, en route. Okay. About this time last year, I had a meeting in Sao Paulo, or outside of Sao Paulo, and I could have really used some resources like yours in terms of navigating through what were my risks where I was going. I knew that my ultimate destination was safe, but once I landed in Sao Paulo, I needed to chart my way through to, in a sense, I was an asset to my company that needed to be protected. Fortunately, I found that. So do you guys drill down to that level of providing security to individuals?
Yeah, and we do. Well, so we haven't done anything in the consumer space thus far. I mean, we've worked with companies with a clearly defined security role, and in the travel space, we've started working with the travel portion of a company, but we're doing it through travel management companies as a partner. What's interesting is what you said, like, hey, your destination may be safe. There may not be a whole lot of risks along the way, but really because, we're moving around so quickly, it's hard to get that information where you might have a trip that, you have a couple of stops, and how do you get granular information about what's on the ground? Our approach is that the only way to do that is to put machines to work, to read everything that's available out there, try to bring some structure to it that we can deliver insights to you based on what we know you need.
Gotcha. I don't want to go into your, it wouldn't be fair to you to go into and ask you exactly what your secret sauce is, but it sounds to me that it is a bit of you drawing together all the possible data and then using technology, and am I correct to say artificial intelligence, to be able to keep building upon that and building upon that?
Yes, we have a machine learning product, and that is, we use machines not unlike human beings do to read, and it's called normalizing data. So a human being's incredible. We can look through a lot of information out there and really find what the insights are pretty quickly. But when you're trying to do that at scale in a world where the actual amount of information is growing exponentially, that human beings can't do. So we really use machines to augment all of us, categorize information that we find in both structured data sources. So this could be coming from the government, or sensors that are out there in the world, like the USGS, weather sensors. And we do what's called normalization. So we bring that together with unstructured sources of data, like the news, social media, things like that, or even provided, potentially from people that want to contribute information to the platform. Really what we're trying to do is understand if there's, one event that's happening, and build out a story about that event as it's ongoing. It's almost like writing down history as it's happening every day, not just leaving that to people.
Is your goal to also be able to predict what's coming?
Yeah, I mean that's what you say about history in general, right? We are looking to take these insights that you would get from an event and understand, this is what's happened in the past. These are the contributing factors to. There's some simple cases where you've seen it before, such as when we look at the terrible wildfires in California last year. If you look at those events, like, okay, you're in mountainous territory, you've had a wildfire. The next thing that happens is there's a rainstorm, and when you have rainstorms and wildfires and steep terrain in California, you get mudslides. This has happened before. So being able to see those events and understand that they're happening, another one that you'll see is like, if there's an earthquake near an airport or something like that, you're going to have to shut down the airport to check the runway for cracks, things like that. And so there's some simple leaps that we can make. And then we want to get more complex about the predictions that we make going forward and get further into the future about longer running trends, which has tremendous market potential, right?
Gotcha. What's your competition look like?
So, I think there's the competition for where we sit now. Like, we have a beachhead market. I described a security customer that we really, as co-founders, Chris and I can relate to them. Chris has been an enterprise risk manager at a firm before, and in the military, I often was basically wearing the enterprise risk manager hat, trying to manage risk in a community. But we are serving that market first, and so the competition first there is from large companies like Everbridge that really we see delivering mass notifications and some intelligence products will be where they're going. But that's a beachhead product for us. Like, we look at what we're selling in the market right now is something of a reference app for what we call the critical event knowledge graph. So if Google's a knowledge graph for the world, then we're building one for critical events and understanding the events that matter to us.
Can you explain what that means?
So when you think about how you would predict the future, like we use a graph. So we have to build out events as they're happening in real time, understand what the attributes of these events. So the location, the time, what entities might be mentioned in conjunction with that event, whether it's a company, the name of a city, the impact or magnitude of the event. But we, build those relationships, and it's through, the pieces of those relationships, both time, location, that you're able to make a prediction about the future or gather a deeper understanding about something that's happened in the past. If you were to go at the place that I'm standing in Seattle and be able to kind of mine what's happened here over time, it's like being able to turn back the pages in the book about this particular place. That's part of what we get from a graph. I don't know if that explanation was
absolutely. Thank you. I just want to make sure that our listeners and those watching would understand the context as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting. Graph concepts are. Any XY axis is a graph, right? Like, where you have the relationship between two different scalars, but the idea as far as an event knowledge graph means that we have an amount of fuzziness. Like, we don't know if this is really an event, and then you get more sources of information that kind of corroborate something, and you build that into something that we would call an event over time. And there are other things that we can compare it to, like a social graph, like in Facebook or LinkedIn. Those are graphs where you and I are nodes on the graph, and then we've got all these other attributes to us that we can use to find relationships, like we've worked at the same company, something like that. We do something similar with, say, location around events or time around events.
Wow. I would think that would be quite useful for our law enforcement agencies.
I think the applications here are like tremendous and limitless as far as what we can think about doing going forward. We haven't worked in law enforcement yet, but if we are really delivering on the ambition that Chris and I have for this company and the team shares, like, yes, we want law enforcement to be able to use us, because what's crazy and what we see in the data right now is that the Seattle Police Department may have a different data structure than King County, than the state of Washington. And so we normalize that data as well. So we make it readable, across departments, so that the fire department and the police department and, the sheriff can kind of all see what's really happening on the ground at the same time. And this is a massive problem. Now,
Sure.
I think in the world that I'd like to live in, I would like for, FEMA to be looking at the same database as, my corporate customers, as the insurance provider, as the National Guard, to understand what's going on. And we see, NGOs that are springing up out there that are doing things like first response to disasters in Houston. There were crowdsourced responses. They should have something easy to build upon, and that's what Stabilitas is providing.
Mm-hmm. Something easy to build upon. What do you mean by that?
So we want to be a data layer that can serve those customers, like FEMA. If Crowdsource Rescue wants to build a front end and understand, hey, this is where the flood line is, this is where the water level is right now, and these are the houses that need a first responder, then I would like them to build their front end, but pull the data from Stabilitas, because that data normalization is the hard part. Building a UI that can be in a web dashboard is not the hard part.
Gotcha.
Let them focus on that.
Sure. Well, let's talk about you and Chris. So Chris Hurst is your partner and co-founder in this endeavor. And I shared in the introduction that your background, West Point as well as Harvard. What inspired you guys to quit your day jobs and create Stabilitas?
So, for me, this started, in a mud hut in Afghanistan, kind of trying to figure out how I could do my job better, but how do we anticipate what's going to happen? How do we know if, we do a local development project, or if we're working with a local government, how can we really reduce violence in the village that I was living and working in? And that was the case for me. I came together with Chris at Harvard while interviewing to go to the MPID program, it's a data science primer at Harvard. And, he had similar questions. He'd been in the military, he'd worked on airfields in Afghanistan, and he was trying to protect his employees that were traveling there. It was really also trying to understand, hey, how do we know that the work that we are doing here matters, and how do we influence the outcome, both in terms of safety for their employees and for operational effectiveness, lowering violence in Afghanistan. And so with his advice, I applied to the program that we came together on, and we really over a few years started to see the real potential of data to give us better insights on the problems that we were facing. And we kind of tested things with a military audience and thought that some of the audience wasn't yet ready for what we were building, but the corporate security space, it seemed like there was a real demand to understand quickly what's happening out there in the world, who was impacted, and give them a way to take action. And so that is why we went after corporate security is our beachhead market. And we find deep meaning there, as well as, the chance to really build out a product that can have a greater impact in the world. Gotcha.
Tell us more about what the current product looks like, where you're at with that.
So the current product looks, I think if you're a developer, the product looks like an API. I mean, that is the user experience where you're able to pull data from Stabilitas or get data pushed from Stabilitas to your own product. We dog food that through our own front end, which we've sold into the corporate security space. So really, we're like a reference customer for the knowledge graph product. And that looks like, it's basically built around Google Maps. It has, some notification functionality built in, so we can send SMS push notifications. You can get to email through the Stabilitas dashboard. But really, since we're in many ways like digitizing events that happen in the real world, we show a map of the world, and we show those events as they're happening on the map. As you zoom in on the map, they become more granular, you get more information, but we start with this worldview. We can tell you where your assets are, where something might be happening along with those assets, and give you a prioritized feed of information as well.
So if I'm your client, and I have an asset that's moving across the globe somewhere, are we able to track that item in real time?
Yeah, so we can do it in real time if we have, if you're using our mobile app, and we also can anticipate where you're going to be if we have your flight reservations. Like I said, we work with more than 1,700 commercial companies that have people traveling all over the world. We try to anticipate where they're going to go and send them some information in advance that might influence their planning. And so, you can visualize that as well, where you have all of your employees or other assets, and those that may be moving in the near future that we know are going to move in the near future. We can help you visualize those as well.
Wow. How far in advance are you able to predict?
It depends on the customer. It's really, when do you want to know about, if you're traveling to Paris next week, or if you're traveling to Brazil, we could tell you a week out, we could tell you a couple weeks out. Of course, the situation changes as you get closer and closer, and that is some of the advantage of what we're doing, is that because we give real-time updates, you're getting a fluid picture of what's happening on the ground and changes so that you can adjust.
Right. So right now we're talking mostly about people, but there are other, if you're working for corporations or clients as corporations, you also have other assets. For example, thinking of a product that needs to get to its destination in a certain time that is very time sensitive, whether it's a corporate or a government product, or it could even be a healthcare related product that must get somewhere. I can imagine that you guys are able to predict if it needs to be rerouted because of problems somewhere. Is that accurate?
That's right. Well, and this is going to become more and more of an issue when you start thinking about every one of those packages kind of being a package, it's being shipped by Walmart or Amazon. People are going to continue to want to know where it is and what impact may be to this movement of goods, and we're going to get more and more granular about where those goods are. So right now, good examples of things that we have done there are, helping people keep track of their fleets and understand whether a truck is on time in its movement. Areas that we see real promise are like, hey, if I'm putting a shipment on a reefer truck, but the temperature is only 30 degrees out, maybe I don't need to put it on a reefer truck. Maybe I could use a regular truck and save some of the cost, for example. So there's a lot of potential here, where really this is just about understanding ground truth about what's going on in our physical world and relating that to the assets that we have moving around in it.
Yeah. How does this affect your day-to-day living? Do you keep the map up to see what you might encounter? Are you able to bypass traffic?
Well, so something nice for me is that I'm able to jog or ride my bike to the office. But our CTO actually, because he has to make a little bit of a commute in, he does use it every single day. So he's really super tuned.
Even better than me.
In the neighborhood, and to monitor like family, seeing things like low quality air alerts and things like that for family on the other side of the world. It's definitely close to home, everything that's happening with Stabilitas every day.
Right. Well, I remember last year when we were sitting in a coffee shop in Portland, and you pulled up a map on your computer, and I was really surprised by how much was going on, just right around within a couple of miles of us. And I can imagine it'd be easy to get paranoid about those things. But at the same time, I think that a real positive on that is if you guys are gathering data from the entire planet, you should be able to predict what things we really don't need to worry about and things that we do need to be concerned about.
Yeah, I think so. I think the world's become a bit more volatile and uncertain. But at the same time, like generally our lifespans have like increased and there's less, global violence overall. Like, I don't think we're trying to scare anybody. We're trying to deliver ground truth about what's going on out there in the world so we can all have a better understanding of it and make better decisions going forward in the future. But if you don't understand what's actually happening in your community every day, how can you be a good advocate for policy in your community? How do you know what the real problems are there? I mean, we're so busy in our daily lives. Like, really what we're trying to do at Stabilitas is like summarize a lot of that information for you, tell you what's important that you can make decisions with. And, we think that can make you a better citizen too.
Yeah. Who reads your data? I mean, who depends upon it? Who's the person in a company that's actually receiving the information and making judgment calls?
We generally, it's generally the title is generally director of security. Like, this role has really emerged after 9/11. So, after 2001, this role became more and more important, and we just see a massive increase in the directors of security at companies. We see, growing startups with directors of security, and much smaller companies that just have a global footprint. So more and more companies are global right now, which is why, travel's been an interesting area for us to be involved. That tends to be the first line decision maker, is that director of security. Often it's intelligence analysts that are within the firm. So there are lots of different flavors of analysts out there, but the security analyst that's trying to understand, the impact of policy change to supply chain or, weather events. There's like an impact of climate change here as well. Like, what things can we anticipate going forward that may, cause us to move our operations out of a country and into another one, like having a secure water supply. So, we help those analysts both understand what's happening in real time to their corporations, but also be able to anticipate, the advice that they should be giving to like the head of operations at a company. We have been introduced to supply chain through our corporate beachhead, because again, security is about understanding what's happening and the impact on the assets at a company. So we find ourselves getting introduced, from security into supply chain, into travel, into HR, and sometimes the security department has many folds to it as well. So there could be a daily operations security, and there could be like a business continuity aspect to security, and we get introduced to them as well. And this is again why I think originally we were thinking we would have this dashboard that served everyone, and we focused more and more on the data over time, because there's so many use cases. We don't want to build a supply chain dashboard. That's not where my experience comes from, and I don't think that we authentically feel we could deliver the best user experience for a product there, but we know that they need to have the same data as the people over in security and the same data as the people over in travel. And by delivering that data to them, we can help give them a common picture of what's going on in the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So moving forward, how do you see yourselves differentiating from others in the security genre?
Well, I think you have to look at what are the trends out there right now, and I think this kind of gets to the question earlier about who are your competitors. They didn't really mention who the future competitors are. So, we've got our beachhead market, our beachhead competitors. They are using technology that was built really in the late 90s, and it's gotten uptick because of this demand for the director of security role. But the way work is going, like, hey, we've got more and more automation coming to our work. We've got more and more data that is available to us to make decisions. We need to harness machines to assist us in that work. And so that actually puts us in a space that's more like a data provider over time. And another trend is that more and more companies are becoming technology companies. So we've sold to companies where the customer, even a security company, is a software developer. And so they're going to build their own product, but they need data to feed the product. So when you put those things together, the market that we'll be in will look more like what was historically a data warehousing, or by that I mean like an IHS market, a Bloomberg, those kind of companies where you're buying aggregated and normalized data, but you're often getting it from a person in a spreadsheet. But in the future, it's all going to be via API, and it's going to be built into a software layer. You're not selling it to an analyst anymore. You're selling it to a software developer, and that's what we are doing.
Right,
so
right.
That's a long-term market.
Gotcha. Thinking about it going forward, it's both exhilarating and exhausting. Just thinking you're not working with a static product or market. Everything is changing constantly.
That's right. It's exciting and fun.
Well, sure, absolutely. Why would you be doing it otherwise?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a startup. There can be plenty of grind to it. I think, in the very early days, you're like, okay, is this the right vision? And you kind of you do a gut check there, and you push through, and then you see customers start to use your product, and you start to see it take off, and then you're able to really bring in talent to execute, and now we see that vision becoming reality. So I think it's really exciting. I think we've not all the bets we've made have been the right ones, but many of them had, and that's given us confidence that we know where we're going.
Do you think anybody really is 100% accurate?
No.
Greg, I look at it and I think, so you guys have been around for 4 years. You started in 2015, and I believe you started with the right bones. I mean, you had the right people with the right vision, and you've been adaptable, and that you've been able to follow your true course, but adapting it as you go. I mean, things have changed dramatically in 4 years, and the technologies available to us in the world, and to you guys in particular, have changed dramatically in just 4 years.
Yeah, our understanding of what that we were calling everything big data. It's artificial intelligence and machine learning. Like, now everybody talks about it, and it wasn't the case a little while ago. And so I think we can also. There are also a lot of other companies that talk about artificial intelligence for security now, but now we know, like, the insights about what's real, what's not. What are rules? What are real machine learning innovations? And we've tackled some hard technical problems and had to deliver there and had results.
Sure. So you guys are currently in a funding round. You've started it fairly recently. You're doing well so far. I don't know how much detail we want to go into on the amount that you're raising. It's really up to you. But what I'd like to ask is, what will this next funding round do for Stabilitas?
It gives us really the bones to scale with. So we've got the team on board to begin scaling, but really showing repeatability in the market so that we can run a little bit faster and to continue working on the deep technical problems. So adding some engineering resources to the team. And then when it comes to scaling, like, hey, we've got some channel partners. We want to be able to support them, deliver the marketing, get our messaging out there. And so, that's going to require financial resources, but we see tremendous potential here in the ability to grow really fast, especially as some of these channels come online. And that's part of the reason that the platform play is so appealing for us. We don't see another platform that's in the market doing quite what we're doing that aligns with the future. So, our current round should take us into 20 to mid 2021 and get us to a healthy run rate. And the potential to break even if we want to. I don't know that we would do that because we see a company that could be north of $100 million in annual recurring revenue. I mean, there are competitors that are out there near us that have revenue similar to that right now. So, we think, why not? And why not us?
And to your credit, you actually have significant contracts. You have had those, and you're exercising those. So it's not that you're sitting waiting for the future to happen. You're actually revenue generating right now.
That's right. And we've had, I think there are two parts of that are really exciting. So we've had to win and get through like procurement with like really, really demanding customers. I think the next phase, which is also exciting, I mean, we're going to continue with the direct sales that we have, but we've made some API sales where people are just buying our data. And so we plan to do more discovery there in the near future. I mean, we have everybody from, financial customers asking us for data, for, commodities, things like that. We have logistics companies asking us for data. Supply chain companies asking us for data. And so really it's been, okay, do the right discovery so that we have the right amount of focus on and execution, go after the most appealing markets first where we can sell quickly. But yeah, we think our go-to-market approach overall has been pretty smart.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to seeing where you guys go. I just in this last 45 minutes of speaking with you, I have thought of probably 20 different applications, both for humanity, but also for the security of product movement, the security of events. Just countless things come to mind of where you guys provide the underlying infrastructure and the data, and then the how to get it, how to make use of it. That's what's I think most important is how do we use that data.
When you look at security, it's about an understanding of the world, and it's really fragmented how we deliver security. And so like having a unifying knowledge base that can tie it all together is where we think we can do something really, really special.
Yeah, absolutely. I would think from a practical standpoint too, when you travel and your family's concerned, you can just show them the data so that to alleviate your wife's concern or
your kids, your grandparent, I mean, all the above, or your own concern. I mean, when at grad school, like I went back to Afghanistan, I traveled through parts of Asia as a civilian, and it was really eye-opening how hard it was to figure out what was out there. I had some experience, so I could dig, and I would be like plotting the hospitals that I knew would be near my hotel in Afghanistan and knew where I was going to go. But that's not the kind of information that most people even think through. And then knowing how to search for the things that you were looking for it wasn't a typical Google search. So it took a little bit more effort, right?
Exactly. It makes me think of one of our events a few years ago was in Ho Chi Minh City. And on our first night, we had a gentleman that was joining us who had an epileptic seizure. And we were very fortunate that we had somebody with us who knew where the best hospital was, and what we needed to do. Most of the time, people do not have those types of resources available to them.
It's not that you can't go figure out that there's a hospital out there. It's getting all the information together. Like, what's the good hospital? What's the one that people go to the most, and who would who would a travel management company or a health service provider that works outside Vietnam recommend, and which one's going to work with your insurance? This is hard information to piece together.
It really is. Well, I love the fact that you guys are doing what you're doing, and we've been involved with as investors, active investors in Stabilitas, I believe, since almost the very beginning.
Yeah.
And, we look forward to being a part of that moving forward as well. Would you like to is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to get out there in this podcast?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I think
we're both introverts, of course not.
Yeah, exactly. If you didn't know. Yeah, I mean, just really excited to be working on the problem. Like we have evolved a long way, and I think like the tying what we were doing initially to the vision, I think we struggled with like how to describe that, but really it's becoming clear now because of just what we've been able to deliver with the product. And so that's really exciting. Deeply appreciate the support, James, in the chance to talk about something that we think is really meaningful for humanity and, for just making the most of this life. So I'd like to be here.
Absolutely. Great. Well, I appreciate your time today. I will also say to those that are listening and or watching that if you'd like more information on Stabilitas, there'll be a link with the podcast to Stabilitas, but also for accredited investors, contact us at Obris by Crown Private, and because we are active investors in Stabilitas. So Greg, hey, have a great rest of your day, and thanks very much for joining me.
Thanks for the chat, James. It was fun, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Since our start in 2012, Obris and our members have invested in more than 60 deals. Stabilitas is a good example of a deal that has that served us extremely well moving forward. If you're an investor and you're intrigued by my interview with Greg or the other investment topics that we cover in the Global Investor Podcast, I have two recommendations for you today. One is head over to obrisinvest.com and learn about Obris, learn about the group. We are accepting new members accredited as accredited investors. That's obrisinvest.com. And number two recommendation is you join us in Panama. We are having our Global Investor Summit in Panama City at the Le Méridien Hotel from July 15th to the 20th. It is not too late to sign up, to purchase a ticket. And really, there's no better way to experience Obris and everything that we have to offer than by attending one of our events. It'll be a week of significant investor insights, a lot of learning, deal presentations of companies that we have vetted and are offering to our members for investment, as well as getting to know Obris members. And you can't miss the opportunity to experience the sights and sounds of Panama City. So visit us at obrisinvest.com/Panama 2019. Our members and guests are an amazing group of self-made and accomplished investors. They come from 15 countries and a wide variety of professions. We share the common pursuit of surrounding ourselves with great people in great places and with gaining significant returns on our investments. Thanks for joining me this week. See you in Panama, and see you at our next podcast. Have a great day.